Check, check. Alright, we're going to start off with the chant. This one on the banner here. I'll say protesting is not a crime. You say justice for the Tampa 5. Protesting is not a crime.
Justice for the Tampa 5.
Protesting is not a crime.
Justice for the Tampa 5.
Protesting is not a crime.
Justice for the Tampa 5.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out today to stand in solidarity with the Tampa 5. My name is Jacob. I'm an organizer with Students for a Democratic Society on the Aurora campus. Before we hear from our speakers today, I'll give you all a short background about why we are all here. On March 6th of this year, our SDS sister chapter at the University of South Florida staged a protest against Ron DeSantis' ongoing attacks against education. Specifically, they were protesting House Bill 999, which prohibits diversity, equity, and inclusion programs such as Africana Studies, Chicano Studies, Gender Studies, and many more in higher education. After several requests to meet with administration which were ignored, members of SDS marched to the office of USF President Ray Law to demand she listen to her students and faculty and protect DEI programs at their school. Within minutes of entering the building, campus police escalated the situation. Police violently grabbed and pulled members of SDS, pinned them to the ground, and groped them. Ultimately, they arrested 4 of the peaceful protesters. The 5th of the Tampa 5 was issued a warrant several weeks after the fact, at which point they promptly turned themselves in and posted bail. On March 6th, they sat in hot police cars for hours as USF officers fabricated what they could charge the 4 with. Meanwhile, SDS chapters across the country jumped into action. We called the school, the USF Police Department, the Hillsborough County Jail non-stop for hours, demanding their immediate release. We raised thousands of dollars for their bail so they would not have to spend a single night in jail. Ultimately, the 5 were hit with bogus charges, including felony battery on an officer, and each are threatened with up to 10 years in prison. We are out here today as the Tampa 5 sit in the courthouse, fighting these trumped-up charges. We and many other groups across the country are standing in solidarity with the 5 and making it clear that we will not let peacefully protesting be treated as a crime in Florida, in Denver, or anywhere else. We will not stand idly by as Ron DeSantis and his cronies threaten our fundamental rights. When students' rights are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back!
When students' rights are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back!
When students' rights are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do?
Stand up, fight back!
What do?
Stand up, fight back!
All right. I'm going to pass it off to our first speaker today. Give it up for Paul from SDS.
I'm going to echo Jacob's thanks for everybody gathered out here today. And for those of you who aren't aware of what's going on or why we're out here today, we're the Students for a Democratic Society. We're a progressive student group, which means we fight for people's struggles everywhere for democracy. We fight against war. We fight against police crimes here in Denver, among other various things. We fight against attacks on education. And our sister chapter in Florida was recently protesting attacks on education down in their state by Ron DeSantis, who is currently attacking history classes down there, saying you can't teach Chicano history or African American history. The history of what has actually happened in this country is not allowed to be taught in these classrooms because they're afraid of teaching a people's history. And so they're cutting from universities, they're cutting classes, they're passing bills to actually impede the ability for teaching professionals to achieve tenure at their schools, so they're threatening organized labor, among other things. And so in the midst of all these attacks, our sister chapter stood up for education, the right for students and their schools to pursue truth and to study these subjects as you should be able to do in any sort of free country as we're supposed to be in. But in the midst of having this peaceful protest, they were attacked. They were ordered to move outside of a public building that's at their school. They weren't really disrupting anything. They were just wanting to have an audience with the president. And in the midst of this peaceful protest, they were attacked. Some of their members were grabbed, thrown into the concrete, groped, or in other ways, hustled by the police, assaulted. And at the end of it, they were thrown into hot cop cars, 5 of them, thrown into hot cop cars to cook for 3 hours before being taken to a jail cell. Imagine that happening to you. If you've ever been to a protest, or if you've ever stood up for what's right, or had some sort of vocal dissent, imagine being met with brutalization and being tossed into a hot car. It just ain't right. And that's exactly what's happened to our peers in Florida. And even after all this mess, after we were able to free them, they're being hit with a litany of bogus charges. For peacefully protesting, they're being said that they attacked police officers. And at the same time, they're trying to say that they peacefully resisted arrest. And that's another charge, which to me is contradictory, doesn't make any sense. And all the charges or any sort of accounts the police have given fly in the face of the actual video evidence that the actual Tampa 5 have uploaded. If you want to learn more about what's going on with these students or what's going on with the struggle in Florida for education, look up tinyurl.com/Tampa5. You can support the Tampa 5 in their struggle. We're currently trying to sell these t-shirts to raise funds for them. So if you want a t-shirt, we're selling for about 20. But other than that, we also have prints. You can support them directly via that URL that I just talked about, among other things. But this is about more than just the Tampa 5. What's at risk here is the right to protest, the right to dissent, the right for progressive people's movements to try and do something differently, to try and say that the way we've been doing things is broken, it isn't working, things need to change. Right. Or, at the very least, to resist attacks to drag us back from where we have progressed. And so, we in SDS dare to struggle, dare to win, stand for a better tomorrow, and in the face of that we are attacked, but the people stand strong and will continue. So, we also want to recognize the other political repression taking place in Florida and across the country. On Tuesday, April 18th, the federal grand jury in Tampa, Florida, indicted 4 U.S. citizens and 3 Russian nationals with charges of, quote, acting as agents of the Russian government within the United States without prior notification. These are members of the Uhuru Movement. The U.S. citizens indicted are Amali Ishatella, chairman and founder of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement; Penny Joanne Hess, a leader of the said movement; Jesse Neville, a member; and Augustus C. Romain Jr., a.k.a. Ghazi Kazul, a former leader. Now, if convicted, they face, like the Tampa 5, up to 10 years in prison. To the charges, we say drop them. That goes for the Uhuru Movement in addition to the Tampa 5. We say hands off the People's Movement, hand off the Uhuru Movement. These raids on the Uhuru are another instance of this state trying to suppress progressive People's Movement across the country. It's rife right now. A lot of folks here in Colorado have read about COINTELPRO 2.0, where in 2020 our local police collaborated with the FBI to shut down protests. Similar attacks are happening across the country. The idea that what's happening in Florida is disconnected with what's happening here is a false one. We don't live on an island. We live in a country of 50 states. And what happens in Florida is soon to follow with Governor Abbott in Texas. And then what's next is they start to pick it up here in parts of Colorado or right here in your backyard. So we have to be conscious and act as a country when our fellow students and fellow progressives are under attack, like in Florida. And so I'll end with a few quick chants. I'll say justice for, you say Tampa 5. Justice for
Tampa 5.
Justice for
Tampa 5.
Justice for
Tampa 5.
Justice for
Tampa 5.
I'll say protesting, and you'll say it's not a crime. Protesting.
It's not a crime.
Protesting.
It's not a crime.
Protesting.
It's not a crime.
Thank you. And I'll end my chant by, again, repeating their ways you can support the Tampa 5 in their struggle, tinyurl.com/Tampa5. You can figure out what's going on. See for yourself. Don't just take my word or characterization of what's taken place, but look for yourself at the videos that have been recorded of what has taken place and come to your own conclusion and support the Tampa 5. and the right of reaffirming our ability to protest in this country and speak freely, to organize like we're doing so today. You do this in Florida, you get brutalized and tossed into a hot car. So we need to stand up. Doesn't matter if you disagree with them politically. What's really at stake here is our right to disagree for a different way. And so it's a pretty broad struggle we're facing right now. And so I'll just end with power to the people, and you say all power to the people. Power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Now, you don't have to take our word for this. All of this is on camera. The attacks by police on the Tampa 5 were all recorded. Go to tinyurl.com/Tampa 5. You can see all that for yourself. Come to your own conclusion. And you're right. This isn't just a problem in Florida. What Ron DeSantis does in Florida, he'll want to do across the country if he runs for president, as he's planning to do. There's countless bills across the country that are already echoing these same things, cutting diversity programs, attacking trans people, attacking the working class. This isn't just an isolated event with DeSantis. This is a system-wide problem that needs to be stood up against.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to have our next speaker. We're going to have Maya from the Black Student Alliance over at MSU.
Woo! Yeah.
Hello, everyone. We are here today because we are always punching up above our weight here in Little Colorado, and because we are witnessing the death of democracy in Florida. As we gather here on stolen indigenous land, hello? We're here today because we're always punching up above our weight here in Little Colorado, and because we're witnessing the death of democracy in Florida. As we gather here today on stolen land, remember that your voices matter, your input matters, your engagement matters, and it's self-evident that the fight is not over. We in Little Colorado have led the nation in progress, as Congress is about 50 years behind our legislature. And as we see progressives protect equity, environmental, and democracy, we see the accomplishments of young progressives, like SDS on a local level, and this alone is an indicator that our engagement matters. So continue to be an example of what democracy looks like through these times. You may be frustrated. You may have given up hope. But they say when you're ready to cry and quit, when your feet can't bear one more step, when you can't even muster the energy to breathe, then you're halfway there. Standing up for what's right is the best way. That is the progressive way. Thank you all for being here. Justice for the Tampa Life.
Yes.
Thank you, Maya. That was awesome. Yeah, that's right. This is what democracy looks like. Democracy looks like protesting. Democracy looks like the ability to have free speech. And when that is attacked anywhere, it's attacked everywhere. We must stand up against that. Stand in solidarity with our sisters in Tampa who are facing political repression on trumped-up charges for peacefully protesting on their school campus. All right, we have a few more speakers here. Next, we're going to go to John from the Denver Aurora Community Action Committee.
I like to hold a megaphone the old-fashioned way. Check. Turn it on, and you don't have to hold it. Check. Turn it on.
Check. I got it. Up with the people!
Up with the people!
Down with DeSantis!
Down with DeSantis!
Up with the people!
Up with the people!
Down with DeSantis!
Down with DeSantis!
Hi, everybody. I really appreciate each and every one of you for coming out and being here. My name is John Palmer. My pronouns
them, and I'm the chair of the Denver Aurora Community Action Committee. We are a grassroots organization that's dedicated to fighting against police crimes and building community-controlled police in Denver, Aurora, and all of the communities in Colorado and across the country. Before I was ever founder of DACAC, I was actually a founding member of TCAC, the Tallahassee Community Action Committee, and my work there and the work of tireless activists of other black and brown folks across the state of Florida inspired me to bring that same energy and that same fight to Colorado. What we are seeing in Florida is nothing new. What we are seeing with the Tampa 5 is nothing new. Florida in particular has a very long history of political oppression against students, against community organizers, against communists, against all kinds of people who decide to stand up for change. In 2020, during the George Floyd rebellion, we saw 18 people arrested by Tallahassee PD, by FSU PD, various other law enforcement organizations, including Florida State Troopers. In that particular event, we were not just fighting for George Floyd, we were fighting for Tony McDade, who was a black trans man murdered by TPD on May 27th. 2 days after May 25th, George Floyd was suffocated to death by Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis. So in Florida, the fight was very personal for us. We were very invested because this was happening in our own backyard, and it's happening here in our communities in Colorado as well. Almost a year ago today, a mass shooting was perpetrated by Denver Police Department just a few blocks from here on the corner of 20th and Larimer at 1:30 in the morning. And one of the people who was shot multiple times in that incident currently has permanent nerve damage and is sitting in prison for being a victim of the police, being brutalized by the police. His name is Jordan Waddy. He's 22 years old. He was 21 when it happened. They put charges on him. They're placing charges against the people that they are victimizing, and that ain't right.
Ain't right.
So it's incredibly important that we recognize the history of political oppression in Florida with the Tally 19, when a crowd of 100 people was outnumbered by 300 officers armed with assault rifles, armed with tactical armor, armed with riot shields, armed with dogs, armed with drones. And it's incredibly important that we tie this to the work that Students for Democratic Society here has been doing in Denver in demilitarizing their police and the incredible victory that they managed to achieve with the police on their campus being not being a part of the 1033 program and having to have more accountability and more red tape put on the police in order to get access to these military weapons that we're seeing. It's so important that these struggles remain connected. The Tally 19 wasn't the first time this happened either. Jacksonville, Florida in 2017, the Jacks 5 were brutalized by police. Some of them even had cracked ribs because they were beaten so badly underneath a bridge. And what's important about that as well is that the attacks on the Jacksonville 5 created the Jacksonville Community Action Committee, created the first Community Action Committee in Florida. And now some of the people of the Jacks 5, like Christina Kittle, are now even more strong, even more brilliant activists than they were before this happened. When we experience political oppression in our people's movements, in our student movements, in the Black Liberation Movement, in the Socialist Movement, when we experience political oppression, we can either let that defeat us or we can build upon that, and we can become stronger, and we can make new friends, new allies, and we can use that as an opportunity, because as a good comrade of mine often says, it's good to be attacked by the enemy. It's good that we have the opportunity to then counterattack and strike our own blows. So with the campaign for the Tampa 5, right now, today, at this very moment, there are people at my alma mater at Florida State University, as I speak, who are also speaking out against this same oppression that we're experiencing, the same attacks against students, attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, attacks against gender studies, attacks against African American and Chicano studies, indigenous studies. The same people that have been brutalized in the Tally 19 are there today, I tell you right now. Because when these things happen, when we experience political repression, we have the opportunity to take that L and take it into a W, make that into a win. And that's what we're doing right now today. There's another example of political oppression that I think is incredibly important for people to recognize. In 2010, members of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and other affiliate groups were actually raided by the FBI across the country, in the Twin Cities, in San Jose, in the Northeast. And this was an opportunity for people to, this was where the Committee to Stop FBI Repression was formed, CFIS. And this is where the opportunity came to continue to build relationships with people struggling for Palestinian liberation, people struggling for Pan-Africanism, and liberation in the different African countries across Kenya and Ghana and other countries. Every time we are striked at by the enemy, we have an opportunity. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're taking the opportunity to stand in solidarity with the people who are being affected most right now. Right now in Tampa, the Tampa 5 is sitting in the courtroom, and they're fighting out their battle. We have to stand there. We have to stand up wherever we are, outside here at Union Station in Denver, Colorado, in Tallahassee, Florida, in Orlando, in Miami, in Jacksonville, all across the country, in Chicago. I could go on. It's so important as well that we recognize, and I'm going to put my FRSO hat on for a second here. I know I came to speak for DACAC, but I'm going to put my Freedom Road Socialist hat on for just a second and say it's so important to recognize the first people who they come and target as targets of political oppression are the communists. And the reason that is because the communists know how to win. The communists knew how to win the revolution in Russia in 1917. They knew how to win the revolution in China in 1949, in Burkina Faso in 1983, in Cuba in 1989, because it's the communists who pose the biggest threat to the establishment, who pose the biggest threat to U.S. imperialism and monopoly capitalism here and abroad. So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you all for being here. Please continue to support the Tampa 5. They have an incredibly long battle ahead of them. This is only the beginning. This is 4 months into their initial arrest, and we are still fighting, and we're going to have to keep fighting because it's people like DeSantis who are encouraging and spurring on fascist and reactionary elements within the populace and within the leadership and the government that have the opportunity to continue to make these attacks against us. But every time they make an attack against us, we have the opportunity to turn that into a win. And so I encourage you all to continue supporting this struggle, to join an organization. If you're interested in fighting against police crimes in Denver and Aurora, please talk to me. If you're a student, please talk to Paul or some of the other folks. Talk to Maya from the Black Student Alliance. If you are interested in the fight for socialism and national liberation, talk to Kyle at Freedom Road. But that's all I have to say. You know, we got a big fight ahead of us, and DeSantis has got a big storm coming. So with that to say, thank you all for coming. No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it's important that we recognize this is not an isolated event with the Tampa 5. All across the country, they've been cracking down against protesters, peaceful protesters. We saw it happen everywhere in 2020 with the George Floyd uprising. There were secret police essentially kidnapping people, putting trumped-up charges on as many people as they could, brutalizing entire communities with tear gas and pepper spray and everything else they could. The system has to put down protests in a violent way, and that's what it'll continue to do if we don't stand up against it. Because it knows that the power of the people is much stronger than the power of the state. All right, we have our final speaker from Freedom Road Socialist Organization. We have Kyle.
Organization. I'm primarily a labor organizer. I work in the Teamsters, fighting for change in our unions. But I came up as an organizer through the SDS, and I've had the opportunity to work side by side with some of the members of the Tampa 5 for a really long time, actually. I met Chrisley, one of the Tampa 5, back in 2017, and she has been honestly incredibly helpful and powerful in my development as an organizer over the years. And let me tell you what, she doesn't deserve this. She deserves better. She deserves to live in a world that's fair, a world where speaking up for justice is not punished. Because this is a punishment. The entire court system dealing with legal troubles is a punishment for working class people like me and like Chrisley. I was told that even if the case is won, they have close to $15,000 in legal fees. Well, we've fundraised across the country, and we raised enough to be able to help pay for that through our networks of activists and people organized and sympathetic to the fight for justice. But this shouldn't have to fucking happen in the first place. The Tampa 5 are not the victimizers in this situation. It's the predatory cops. It's the state of Florida, and it's DeSantis and his lackeys that want to make an example out of these organizers that have changed my life for the better, not to mention all the other people they've inspired over the years. Some $15,000. I know members of the Tampa 5 have lost their jobs over these charges. They've spent countless hours working on this case, raising awareness, I'm sure stressing about all of this. Imagine if you had up to 10 years in prison over your head. I would be worrying my head off. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you have to fight, as John said. You can't take the shit lying down, especially when this is your life or the life of those that stand next to you in the struggle. That's why this is so important to me and why I came out here today, because no one wants to have to do this, you guys. No one wants to have to spend their day out here, but we stand in solidarity with the Tampa 5, and there's no force in the world that can change that. But what is going to change is this rotten system we're in, because we're going to stand up and fight. We're going to fight these charges. We're going to fight DeSantis. We're going to set a precedent in the opposite direction, one that says protesters cannot be put away for speaking truth, because when we fight, we win.
Woo!
When students' voices are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When students' voices are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
Stand up!
Fight back!
Stand up!
Fight back!
Stand up!
Fight back!
Stand up!
Fight back!
Okay. So we live in a rotten system, right? We know it because of cases like the Tampa 5 or the numerous other injustices we witness every year here in the United States. So what's the solution? I'm going to tell you real simple. It's revolution. This word gets tossed around a lot, often by people who want to skip all the steps that lead up to revolution. But in reality, we really have a lot of work to do to reach this goal. That's why Freedom Road Socialist Organization fights in the student movement. We fight in the movement for community control of the police. We fight in the labor unions, and we fight against materialism. We attack the system from all the angles we can to build the struggle, because we know that it's not just going to happen because we say we want it. Just telling people socialism will solve all the answers is not enough. Saying you want it is not enough. It's an ongoing, protracted struggle of the masses, one that doesn't even end with revolution, because when we win that, the billionaires will fight even harder. But we have to start somewhere. If you're a student, you need to start somewhere. If you're a worker, you need to start somewhere. If you've been victimized by the police, you need to start somewhere. And that's where I joined Freedom Road, because I needed to start somewhere. No one's going to do the work for us. We have to do the work ourselves. No one's going to free the Tampa 5 unless we all come together in solidarity and in an organized fashion and do the fucking work. And I want to repeat what I said earlier. We shouldn't have to. Chrisley doesn't deserve this. Lauren doesn't deserve this. Shia doesn't deserve this. Laura doesn't deserve this. And Jeannie doesn't deserve this. They don't deserve what they're going through. What they do deserve is for everyone who can to rise up in their name, fight the righteous fight in solidarity with them. FRSO is doing the work for revolution. If this is something you care about, or you're interested in, even the slightest bit, please come talk to me. We need more fighters. We need more revolutionaries. We need more people who care about justice, like the Tampa 5. Because when we stand organized, we're able to fight and win. Thank you. That's right. We need to get organized. We need to fight. DeSantis, rail law, the USF police, the conservatives and fascists across the country, they did not expect a fight. They thought we would simply come quietly and allow them to push us back into the dark ages. They are cowards, and so assumed we too would be cowards. But we are not cowards. We will not back down from the fight. We know, in the words of revolutionary Kwame Ture, in the struggle for justice, we cannot be defeated. We can only be defeated if we surrender, and we will not surrender. What started as a few students in Florida requesting their school act in the interest of students has turned into hundreds of people in over 10 states standing in solidarity just today alone. Say it with me. The people united will never be defeated. The people united
will never be defeated.
The people united
Will never be defeated.
The people united
Will never be defeated.
But we must be united. If you are not in an organization, join one. If you're a student, join Students for a Democratic Society. We'll turn you into Organizer for Life. Join the ACAC. Join the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Join any of these organizations and join the fight. Come talk to one of us to learn more. Thank you again for coming out. And one more time, we're going to end with this. Protesting is not a crime.
Justice for the Tampa 5.
Protesting is not a crime.
Justice for the Tampa 5.
Protesting is not a crime.
Justice for the Tampa 5.
All right, thank you.
Number 6. Yeah. 5 and all the way live. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Remember that? Okay. I gotcha. How do I do that?
You're on Instagram? I'm on Instagram. So when you end it,